So we have to do our mainstream discussions, and helping us, well, look at the issues is the Member of Parliament for Sekondi, Andrew Ejapamesa is here. He's a legal practitioner as well. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning, my good friend.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you also. How's the family?
Ah, they're good.
Yeah, especially your first son. He's very cool. But your second
he took after me.
The second took that guy.
And you say he's cool?
Yeah, the first is cool.
No, both of them. In fact, the second Andrew rather is the much cooler one. Oh. Yeah, James.
All right. So it means that the second is influencing the first. And then also we have Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo, Member of Parliament for South Dying. And then also a legal practitioner. His constituency is closer to OT, the newly proposed OT. It was part of those who put together the manifesto of the NDC. So he's very familiar with how the region would have been created if they had won power. So he's not, he's not opposing the creation of the OT region. For those who are in South Dying opposing, your MP is cool. I think we only have one or two other issues. But let's move on to some other issues. We know that there have been concerns raised by residents living on the stretch from Zongo Junction to the traffic light at Adenta, and is all within the Medina constituency, of course. We will also have the Adentan constituency as well. But the residents in Adenta have been raising issues about why they haven't had those crossover bridges that need to be built to ensure that residents, instead of crossing the road, would rather have to use the footbridges, because it resulted in a number of deaths. Just yesterday, before the close of the news day, 2 people had died. Now the residents want to mass up and protest. We have Yao Boabing Asamoah, who is a Member of Parliament for the area. Good morning to you, Mr. Boabing Asamoah. Good morning to you, Mr. Boabing Asamoah.
Good morning, Sir Roland.
Yeah, nice having you on the line. But the residents in your constituency are raising those concerns. It looks like all of you, including those elected into public office, are just sitting aloof, doing nothing about the current situation.
Thank you very much, Roland. Let me, first of all, sympathize deeply that it's very difficult. Those who have lost lives, who have lost loved ones, an extremely unfortunate situation and absolutely unacceptable. And so let me extend my deepest sympathy to all of them. Let me then state probably a simple truism that no politician would let a vote go if they could help it. So to assume that there's a situation that deserves attention that politicians will simply overlook for laziness or lassitude or want of care would again be very unfortunate on the part of the politician. But you see, we have a major crisis of infrastructure in this country that we need to confront. It's not only these footbridges, but the generally poor infrastructure, the poor maintenance culture. There are a couple of roads in my constituency now that have been, since I arrived, have been fixed and are being torn apart even as I watch. And the abuse the political leadership is sustaining for that kind of ineptitude, poor maintenance, and the absolute indiscipline of drivers. Roland, in the last few days, we hear of 6 dead in Bunsu. We hear of 6 dead in Gomwa. We hear of reckless truck almost killing the Deputy Minister of Communications and 3 others. And now we have the footbridge thing, and of course, there's some statistics wrapped up about deaths in the footbridge area. I'm not too sure about the statistics. It doesn't matter the numbers. What matters is that all over this country, on a daily basis, we are losing lives on roads. Either they are very poor, either they are poorly maintained, or sheer indiscipline. It is the government's duty to deal with such issues. It is the government's duty. And definitely, delivery of infrastructure is not a league table affair. I did this, so I'm on top of that league. This government did this. It is a collective responsibility of government before independence and today.
Well, Mr. Boabing Asamoah, I do acknowledge all the concerns and the issues you're trying to put together about the poor state of road safety and the behavioral change that we need as a society. But that could be countered by education. What have you done within the milieu of all the concerns that have been raised by the residents to at least put to bed their concerns? More so, try to get the needed ministry or the entities that are responsible for making sure they have those footbridges right on, on that main road.
That is exactly where I was getting to. That is the government's duty, not only to be sympathetic, but to deal with the issues. It is the current government's duty to resolve whatever it has met, but it will do that in the context of the legacy issues. We came. There wasn't even a street light on that road. The first thing that confronted both of us, the Madina MP and I, was getting some street lights fixed. You then come up against contractual issues. You come up against design issues. You come up against procurement issues.
Designing a footbridge, it needs some bureaucracy.
Roland,
is that what you're saying?
You cannot just restrict to footbridge. I'm saying that that entire route is a subject of contractual issues. So it is not just about the footbridge. The footbridges have come up very strongly. And I think the ministry, having seen what has come up, have now realized how strong the sentiment on the ground is. So for me, it is good that there is sentiment on the ground. But when I'm restricting it only to footbridges, because we have issues with traffic lights. The loss of life started with traffic lights far earlier at SDA Junction. At some point, we managed to get the lights fixed. As I speak, they are not working. So it's not just about footbridges. There are complex issues on that road, very complex issues of takeover. My understanding, over the past 2 years that I've been following the process, my understanding is that government hasn't even taken over the road. My understanding is that there were vast arrears issues that had to be resolved for the contractor to finish. My understanding from the information I've gained from the various technical people is that even the main road hasn't been finished yet until the footbridges are finished, and then the main road will then be finalized. These are things that I have heard. In fact, at some point, I was even surprised that they brought lights onto the road just before the election, because I had been fighting for it, and my understanding was that until the road was complete, the lights would not be installed. But they were installed. As I speak, having installed them, our poor maintenance culture comes into being. They are not consistent. They are not regular. Lights have been installed on that road, but they hardly ever...
Well, Mr. Samoa, you sound like you've given up. You sound like you've given up.
How can I give up? I dare not give. This is a country we must turn around. Okay. That's why I'm saying the minister is busy putting together a project to resolve all these issues. But he has to operate in a larger context.
Are you aware that the residents in your constituency...
Don't forget, we have two major projects going now. We have Sino Hydro, and we have, even in terms of the global view, there's a $500 million advance being negotiated to come in and plug this infrastructure gap. So there are issues, but that must be tackled globally. I have asked the minister to do his utmost to try and prioritize the key issues on this road, so that we don't solve one problem and then lead to another.
That's MP talk. It took you 2 years to get the traffic light. That's MP talk.
Yes, there are two issues. In fact, there are three issues. One is the traffic light, two is the footbridges, and three is the actual completion and handover. Because the completion will come with traffic, will come with street furniture.
Mr. Samoa.
Now it makeshift street furniture. We don't have street furniture.
Mr.
We don't have signs showing where to stop,
Mr. Samoa.
We don't have any of those things.
Mr. Samoa.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware that the residents, or most of them, or those who are raising all these concerns, intend going on a protest on the 12th?
Yes, but that is their constitutional right. I think that they deserve to show up their concerns. I'm aware of all that is going on. I'm aware of all the meetings that have been held. I'm aware of everything.
Are you going to participate?
I think it's a right. I think as long as everything is peaceful in a democracy, those rights cannot be abrogated by anybody. And I think the government ought not to be afraid of any such thing. The government will be vested with the necessary urgency and all that, even given the current situation, the deaths and all that. It's not something that's palatable to politicians. And it is not something, the solution within the jurisdiction of only politicians.
Well,
It's a global.
Mr. Boabing Asamoah, you are an experienced communicator. You talk nice. You're one of the few politicians in our country who talk nice and are able to convince people. The point is the citizens need these facilities over the road so that they can't trek instead of just plying across.
Citizens will get the road. It will go through the process.
When, Mr. Boabing Asamoah, when?
I am not. If I was in a position to deliver it tomorrow, I'll be the happiest politician.
Well, thank you very much. Boabing Asamoah, you're a member of parliament for the constituency, Adenta constituency. But you want to make a comment or two on this?
Yes. Well, good morning to our cherished viewers this morning. I guess the issues clearly are much deeper than we all have been made to know from the snipers that we've heard from the various stakeholders. Ultimately, there's one thing that the people want, and I think that it's a call in the right direction if they ask that the footbridges are made available. And I believe that the ministry and the highways ought to do whatever it takes to ensure that these things come up. My only surprise is that I would have thought that right from the beginning of the design conception stage, we would have known where the footbridges were going to be. Some EPE assessment was going to go in to determine accessibility.
You've had the experience of the N1. It's the same thing. You know, we build the facilities before we have hindsight
before we think of, and it's unfortunate if that's what really is the situation. I think our engineers ought to do more. You know, because it would make sense to construct these footbridges as you do the construction of the road, as opposed to finishing and now putting them in. You know, if the entire value chain had been evaluated and some thought gone in there, I'm sure these things would have been done. But of course, it's not too late. To the extent that we ourselves will be disciplined enough when, after calling for these bridges and they being put there, we would go ahead to use them. Because many a time, yes, you cited the N1 example. You see footbridge next door, but people crossing the street, not bothering to use the footbridge. Boils down to
even streets, highways.
There you go.
Highways.
Well, those are all highways.
So the indiscipline, really, is part of what is causing the death on the road. I'm not saying that the footbridges should not be put there. By all means, they should be. You know, but if there are not footbridges and you have to walk a few meters, hundreds of meters to use a traffic light or an intersection to cross, why risk your life on a highway crossing the median? It bugs. I mean, I can't believe.
We need to build barricaded guardrails.
At what cost?
You know, at what cost?
Of course, it's our money that's going in there. You know,
lives. We don't want to lose.
So why don't we exercise some caution? You know, our own self-preservation, and use at least the channels that are available until such time that these footbridges are made available.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me use the opportunity to say good morning to my constituents in Pekik, Pali, Peve, Tongo, and also extend my heartfelt condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives. Maybe I need to. That's one of the main routes I use going home. It's
you mean
not
when you're going to your constituency. You go through the.
Yes, I use the motorway or I use Dodoa. It's not the case that the footbridges were an afterthought. They were integral to the project design. The problem is that they have not been completed, they've been abandoned. So the main frames have been constructed, but the staircase that will lead to accessing the frame and going over the road have not been done. So you have one located at Zongo Junction. You have one located at just after Honorable Kennedy Japan's place. That's
Reese.
It's something city.
Ken
City. Okay.
It's called Reese Junction.
Yeah. No. Before Reese Junction.
Okay.
Before Reese Junction. Just after Ken City, there's one. Then, just after Reese Junction, there's another one. Then there's another one that connects to the EP Church, Adenta. Okay, so there are 4. The only one that appears to have been completed somehow is the one that connects from the Adenta side to the Hacho side up to EP Church.
Is it usable?
No, because the staircase connecting from the Adenta side is not complete. So it's an abandoned thing.
But we need to speedily work on
no, hold on. You see that this is a matter for urban roads. It's not for anybody to worry about. It's urban roads. Why has urban roads?
So you think that we're just being needlessly
yes, we should be asking urban roads. This is their project. It's been handed over to them. Why is it that a project like this that is integral to the completion of the entire stretch from Tetekwasi roundabout all the way to Pedwasi have been completed, and yet the footbridges have not? Why did they find the need to construct a footbridge at Shashi recently? That one was not original, but because of the sheer numbers of people who cross the road during the wee hours, either early morning or in the evening, they found the need to construct a metal one. So they should try and complete the concrete ones. So we can, you can't ask the people not to cross the road. That one we can. It's a behavioral thing. But if we give them the other alternatives in crossing, then when somebody crosses the road and there are issues, then we can talk properly. But now we are constrained. So urban roads should come in and do the needful.
Yeah, we'll see. We also hope that at least there will be some intervention so that the residents don't go on the demonstration on the 12th of November. If they do go, though, we'll be there
I think you should
to
look
bring you all the
for
latest
the
updates.
Metropolitan Director of Urban Roads and speak to him on this matter.
Well, we'll
Yes.
try as much as possible and get all the
maybe
needed
for
people.
midday,
The point is that you, the
it's important.
politicians, when you put your foot down, things get done. I don't
This
know
is
why.
not about politics.
All right,
honestly.
Pastor
This is not about
Otabel,
politics.
others sued. And the General Overseer of ICGC, Pastor Mensa Otabel, and the institution he heads himself, that's ICGC, and 13 others who are shareholders and directors of the Defined Capital Bank, they've been sued for allegedly engaging in acts that led to the collapse of the bank. These are not new issues, but of course there is a new one. And let me start with you on the subject. We've discussed the content of perhaps even the rate, etc. But that's where we are currently, as far as this is related.
Yeah, I think that is just a matter of course. You know, ordinarily the joint receivers would have engaged with the parties involved, in this case the shareholders and the directors, to get them to either pay up or make some proposals to pay up. And if those engagements does not yield the desired results of recovering the money, bear in mind that taxpayer money has had to be injected, you know, in saving depositors of these banks whose money essentially is what has been per the information that's been made available to us, dissipated by the directors and shareholders of the banks. And so necessarily the job of the receiver is to ensure that all those who owe the entity pay up. And so I'm not surprised. Of course, the expectation would have been that this matter would have been resolved and not end up in court. But as it is, clearly,
ideally.
yes, of course, because
So you're saying this is
potentially
this is
is
an
because the money
action
is
that could
not
have
there.
been avoided.
If they had paid up, then there wouldn't have been the need for the receiver to bring an action in court to seek to recover those monies. Because if you make a demand on someone who is indebted to you, all the documents show that some funds belonging to the bank. And you see, if you relate it to Ghanaian thinking, you know, not every Ghanaian, but most people think that to the extent that you set up a company, you own the company. We forget the distinction, you know, between the company and the owner. That the company is separate and distinct from the ownership. So company's assets do not necessarily belong to you. I think that the shareholders of Capital Bank
May have
absolutely, you know, treated the assets of the company as
they
if
soiled their hands
it
into
was
some
their
areas
personal
that they're not
property.
supposed to.
And clearly, if you grant loans in the manner that we have been made to have been informed, were done clearly, it behoves on the appropriate agency, in this case the receiver, who is vested with legal authority to act for the benefit of the company in recovering these obligations that are owed to it. Does whatever it takes to recover these sums of money for the company. And so that's where we are. As the days go by, I know that the call has been severally been made that some prosecutions ought to take place. I suspect that if fraud is established, which is a criminal offense, clearly those actions will be taken in due course. But with the action that the receiver has brought, I think is in the right direction.
It was just a matter of course.
Absolutely, okay. Yeah. To the extent that they were able to pay on demand by the receivers, then necessarily they will go to court to seek to recover these monies for the banks, and wherever the monies that belongs to the bank went to, for which government has had to come in, those monies will have to go back there.
When it comes to such cases, and this one relatedly, this is supposed to be a civil action?
Yes.
Okay. So now that we've discussed this issue, and we're told that sometimes when the issue is in court, you don't discuss it, but I mean, we virtually know the content of it, etc., and the actions thereof. Now, some of the actions.
I think
when we're discussing, we're told.
I think it's the merits.
Okay.
It's the merits that.
Okay. So we're told that some of the actions that were taken, per what the media reports were, and the document we've cited, and the actions thereof taken by the Bank of Ghana. The actions of these shareholders and some of their directors were an affront to a particular law or regulation for the industry in which they operated. Now, if that should happen and it's been established, what does it mean? And consequently, what actions could be taken either by the regulator and subsequently even by the ones that have put together this rate?
Now, in matters like this, there are several alternatives open. This is a civil action that has been brought by the aggrieved receivers. And like he rightly said, where there's been a clear failure to, as it were, propose reasonable means of redeeming this just indebtedness. Once you fail to do that, and negotiations or backdoor negotiations have broken down, then they have no other alternative than to have recourse to the law courts. I listened to the new director, the new MD of a consolidated bank, and he made some comments yesterday. He was interviewed by, I think, Metro TV, and I want to ask him to not speak on those things regarding a court case in this matter. When we have been sued,
the consolidated bank matter has not gone to court.
No. But it touches on some aspects
of the Capital Bank and the UT.
Exactly.
Really.
So he was making some comments. I want to urge him that in matters like this, it's not necessary to say those things to the media. I mean, look for lawyers, let them do what is needful in the matter. Because you see, eventually from experience, it will get to a stage where it will be necessary for the two parties or the parties on either side of the divide to sit and talk. But when you poison the waters from the beginning, then it becomes very difficult to now talk. Because once you begin to talk, then you have to compromise. You have to make, you have to give, drop some of your issues that you are holding. You make compromises so that you can reach an agreement sort of. Now, the most important thing is that they are asking, as part of the reliefs, they're asking for the recoveries of these monies. And clearly, I want to listen to the defense of the defendants, the sort of defense that they will file. It's only then that we can really tell. It's only there that lawyers can actually see the nature of the action. Once a writ is issued, it becomes unidirectional. You don't know the person's defense until you hear the defense.
Okay.
Before you can tell that whether they are crossing issues or there are really issues to be settled. So I will want to wait quietly for the defense of the defendants.
And it's good that we're looking at some of these things. So because we're just using this because of your experiences to just give viewers what we expect or likely to
procedural.
Exactly.
So now in going forward, they always say that when you are a director of a company or a shareholder, etc., the company is different from you, or you're the same?
No, completely different. I mean, the ownership or shareholding of a company is the creation of a company is to set up a separate legal person from
artificial as it were
from the owner that has perpetual succession until steps are taken to, as it were, wind it up or liquidate it if you like. And so just as you have a birth certificate and a death certificate, a company is commenced by the issuance of a certificate of incorporation or commencement,
can also die.
and also can die by the legal process of if you like, killing it, and so that's what it is. The fact that you are a shareholder of a company doesn't mean that the assets of the company and your own personal assets are the same. They are completely separate and distinct, and you need to treat them as such, because failure to do so clearly would vest creditors and of course, if you like, people who have an interest, including debenture holders and all that, some rights in attaching the assets of the company in the event of liquidation.
So now,
if I may, a very small point. We are in the process of considering the new companies bill. It's quite voluminous. There are a lot of new things.
Will you be biting on this?
No. Yes. No. It's I mean Parliament.
Okay. So you are just educating us on what.
Yes. And he knows that there are a lot of new things. And indeed, as part of the trite principles in company law, when you are a director of a company, you stand in fiduciary duty to the company. Whatever you do must be in the utmost interest of the company. Otherwise, leave. That is why now there are clear principles where if you have a vested interest in the matter, you must disclose.
And if you fail,
you are liable.
You're liable.
You understand?
So now we have shareholders who have
Ordinarily, the shareholders' liability would have been limited to the extent
number of shares
the stated capital that they have in the entity. But in this case, they've been joined because of the allegation that some loans were granted to them. Okay, and so necessarily those ought to be recovered. So they become customers of their own company.
Very well.
You see, and you see that in the suit, they are making a case in fraudulent misrepresentation, and it's been well particularized. That's why I'm very careful. I want to hear the defense.
No problem.
Then the course.
And this one is just an example. We're just using this. We're not saying that this is exactly what we're talking. Yeah. So in such circumstances, when, as per what the rate is saying, PricewaterhouseCoopers want and the others want, if they are not able to retrieve whatever it is from the shareholders, where else or what steps again can be taken to go and retrieve all that?
Well, it depends. They can attach their assets.
Meaning what?
Let the trial determine that.
Oh, please. We're talking instances. We're not talking this. No.
Okay.
We're talking instances where something. I'm not talking about this. Oh, I'm saying that there's a certain case in point, and actions may be taken that the shareholders need to bring this. We are retrieving this from them, but as shareholders.
I will not even.
You see, you speak of shareholders or you speak of directors?
But it says shareholders.
It says shareholders and directors. You see, ordinarily, okay, if the shareholders of this bank had not taken facilities from the bank in their personal capacity,
there will
and
be
the
no
bank
problem.
had gone into
down under
liquidation or it's been wound up, then the recourse would have been to recover whatever was outstanding in terms of their equity contribution to the company. However, in this case, and I've not read the rate in detail. I mean, I've only seen the newspaper reportage. But of course, this is a subject that has been widely discussed. The issue is the loans that they took. So clearly, they had put themselves in a position as customers of the bank and use their influence on the board.
For example, we're told that Capital Bank is going after CDH and all
Yes,
those.
that's a customer.
So if a shareholder is a customer,
yes,
and so you can.
So you need to necessarily distinguish their
that's what I'm
capacity
saying.
as
Let's say in
shareholders.
Such instances,
And
can they go after their assets or something?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes,
When they obtain a judgment, then they will have to take steps to
recover.
execute the judgment, and that
But
includes
it needs to go
attachment
free.
of the assets and all that.
Nothing untoward is found against them.
Let
Well,
the
this is a
trial
recovery.
determine.
It's not a criminal trial.
It's a civil matter.
It's a civil case. So
You can go all the way to the Supreme
No,
Court.
law is strange. Eh?
No, law is very,
It's
very,
very
good.
interesting.
All right.
Law is good.
Okay.
That's what drives society.
At what point then, if an interested party in a matter, not like this, maybe any other related matter, sees that they are coming after him, can say that, well, I'm declaring bankruptcy, and that at least in a way stops the intrusion or the incursion or the spear from being pointed at his heart?
Not at all. For you to file for bankruptcy as an individual, there are steps you follow.
Yeah.
So you can't say, you can't conceal your assets,
No.
even though you have them.
No.
And hold on, you asked a very clear question, and I'm giving you a very clear answer that you can't have assets and pretend not to have them.
What if diverted? Now the world has changed.
They'll go after you. They'll go after you. They'll pierce all the veils and go after you. In fact, exactly. In fact, the Office of the Special Prosecutors Act, we've crafted a lot of clauses and sections there that will pierce the veil and come after you. Now, this society is changing.
It could take years.
No? Yes, it could take years. I agree. It could take years. But they will use the law to come after you. They will trace everything.
You can hide the monies in Dubai.
Even if under the Office of the Special Prosecutors Law, even if you divest your interest in the property, the time and circumstances under which you did that can become a subject of litigation. The court can reverse that.
But that's clearly a
understand.
principle, so
Yes.
that has been codified.
So,
All right.
so
Very well. Thank you for the education. I think that our viewers will get this.
That's what we did this morning.
Yes.
No politicking.
No politics. At least for today, we will
For
not
the
do
first
politics.
time in several months.
But let's go on to the subject of KNUST and the impasse. We know where we've reached. There's supposed to be a new governing council that has been put aside for a recall of the old governing council. But this time, government wants the members or representation on the recalled governing council to change.
No governing council has been recalled.
Okay.
The governing council of the KNUST has been dissolved.
It's been dissolved.
Absolutely.
So
by the appointing authority.
The consensus is that a new...
You see, there's some misconception out there that I think ought to be cleared. I've heard people say that government hasn't got the power to dissolve the KNUST council or any council of the university.
No, we're not discussing that.
Very well. So I guess that you are clear.
Yes.
I'm
clear on that.
Capacity of government to, as it were, dissolve the KNUST council. Now, following the dissolution, government set in place an interim council, okay, to, as it were, investigate the issues that led, and also to get the school reopened by a certain date. Subsequently, some engagements took place, and a decision was taken that a substantive council be reconstituted. And my understanding is that at that meeting, it was agreed amongst the stakeholders that no member of the dissolved council was going to be part of the reconstituted.
That's the information you have.
Absolutely. It was agreed. And so, government has nominated its reps. Charles, I believe, has nominated its rep. And then one other agency that also, I do not recall immediately.
TUC.
Yes, has also nominated a new rep. But some of the stakeholders are saying that, well, we are backing down on our initial agreement not to renominate any of the old council and asking that those same persons be put on the council. And that's where the stalemate seems to be coming from. I fail to see why that situation should arise. But I guess that as the days go by, more dialogue would be engaged in, and this matter resolved, because the council has dissolved, stands dissolved.
All right. So now we've gotten to the point where we need to have the members or the council reconstituted with new faces. I mean, literally, that's what it means.
You see, in this matter, government is not acting reasonably. Government is not acting reasonably. You see, government rushed in all this because you don't form an interim council and dissolves the interim council also after 3 days.
Can dissolve it even after an hour.
I agree.
So what's the basis
But
of your
it means,
hold on.
It means government is not taking its time to deal with this matter. Government is just acting on its whims and caprices.
Arbitrarily.
Yes. Why? These institutional representatives have special arrangements before they get there.
Internally.
Yes. You don't when you represent you just don't get up and represent
But it's a special case.
Why? Why is it exceptional? Why is it exceptional? Let me finish. Why is it exceptional circumstances?
Distrust on both
Distrust.
sides. Yes.
Caused
So
by
once the human element
caused by there have been so many student agitations and closing down of universities. No government dissolves a council. You allow the council to deal with the matter. The vice chancellor is the chief disciplinarian. So if government is saying that they want all the members or the previous
the vice chancellor should not be seen to be draconian.
Hold on. If government is saying through a Japan now that they want all the old members on the previous council not return, are they changing the chancellor? Are they changing the VC? Are they changing the alumnus representative? The SRC president? Because by the SRC constitution, it is the president that represents their interest on the council.
Who was on the old council.
Exactly.
So if
they haven't held new elections.
So you are saying per the argument, then you can't even have the SRC president being on the new council.
Exactly.
They should choose somebody else from the institution.
And their constitution doesn't permit that.
How do you say it in exactement, or what do you say?
Exactement. You see, so they should be a bit reasonable, and I appreciate the fact that as to the institutional representation, you see, there are.
So you're saying government is.
It's not being reasonable. You see, at the time, government is being dictatorial. You see, government is being dictatorial.
How dictatorial?
Let me finish. Japan, when you're talking, I was quiet.
There's absolutely no basis
you are
for
dictating.
that assertion.
I'll give you a chance to continue. We have on the line Professor Eric Fokuo. He's the president for the chapter of UTAG, that's the University Teachers Association of Ghana, on KNUSA campus. Good morning to you, Professor Fokuo.
Good morning, sir.
And per the constitution of the council, the representatives should be UTAG, TEU?
Professorial rep and non-professorial rep.
Okay.
So it goes on. The list goes on.
Okay. So now government is saying, per the press conference that was convened early Monday and addressed by the information minister, that yes, you can have the institutional representation, but not the same faces. You don't seem to agree. Why?
But when is the government? I mean, can government give us even one quotation, either from the Constitution of Ghana or the University Statute, that gives me the power to do that? You see, as the previous speakers said, something happened on Monday. Tuesday, you came to the Regional Coordinating Council. You called the Vice Chancellor, you called the SIC. But Thursday morning, you put in place an interim government. No report up to now, as I speak to you now. You don't even have a single report blaming the council, blaming management, or blaming UTAG, or blaming TEU. Is that the way we run this investment in this country as well? Not a single. Why is the government rushing? Why this knee-jerk approach? how I was a member is pushed or recommended to be a council member. Do they really understand how the university is being governed?
Now you tell me, how do you go about it in getting a representative on the council?
One, professorial members on council, the whole convocation, talking about 1,003, 2,000. The guy who goes around the whole campus and we vote him or her onto office for 2 years. The registrar has written to him that he has 2-year mandate, after which he will come back again for the system to say, okay, we voted you there, you didn't do what you want to do, then we vote another person. We will do nomination for about 2 weeks before campaign starts and the voting continues. Then we have professorial on council the same. It's not only 2 persons that say, I don't want the professorial on council, so then we don't have next. We don't have anybody in place again. And the retired, per our constitution, we vote you to become a president, then we represent our council. It's as simple as that. So if you say you don't need or you don't want the professorial on council, can you register appoint anybody to be there? No. We have to go back to the drawing table. Government should tell us, oh, professorial on council did this 1, 2, 3. Okay, convocation. We voted you to be there. You didn't do what you wanted to do, so let's remove you and put another person there. What power is that government drawing from? Who gave you that power?
All right. Now, we know that apart from this being a procedural issue, the circumstances that led to what we saw, the protests and the subsequent vandalism that followed it by the student protesters, was laced with some emotions and perhaps poor human thoughts. So if representatives of the then council were deemed to have taken actions or could be blamed for the circumstances that led to the protests, so to speak, then they should not be the same people who should then form the council that could resolve the impasse. Is that not so?
There should not be. Where are you quoting from? From your mind? From where? Where we see.
My mind.
Something happened on Monday.
It's my mind's construct. This one is not from any law.
All right. Something happened on Monday. None of the government, apart from Mutupo, who came here to go, none of them came on campus. It's a system. You have two, you have council. You didn't even interview. There's no report. It's the way we're going to govern this country. Not even a single report. Blaming anybody. It has happened severally on other campuses. We have the report before us. Then the blame game can start. It's a typical Ghanaian way of solving problems. The blame game. You blame the council. And can they tell us exactly what the council should have done that they didn't do?
Okay, I have I think 2 more questions. Let me ask you. Professor Fokuo, do you think that government, because of its own political gains, is trying to side with the students? Because if you look at it, the demographics, the population is more. And you, the whole academic and teaching population demographics, you're small, so they can sacrifice you. You think that's the way it's going?
And you think it's easier that I've been here for 23, 22 years. I'm not a professional lecturer. You are engineer. I'm an engineer. So you think that it's easier to throw me away and bring anybody? They should go ahead. We will encourage them to do that.
Okay.
We are meeting this morning, and definitely you hear from us. They should go ahead.
Professor Fokuo, do you think it is nice to be threatening the academic institution of KNUST, the student population, and the entire government that they'll hear from you? You want to go on strike?
I'm privileged to lead such people. Personally, I'm not speaking for my own. We are going for a meeting, executive committee meeting. Tomorrow we'll meet the whole entire staff. Then the result is what I speak.
Okay, so
I'm not on my own. It's a whole association. So we are meeting this morning, 9 o'clock, and after that we let you know exactly. And we're going to react. Definitely we're going to react to the press conference. Take it from me.
Are you backing down your position, or you are not going to back down?
No. We are not going to replace today, tomorrow, or not. I mean, we've maintained, the government has no power. The government should give us one code, either from constitution or from our own statute, that will tell us that the government has every power to say who should represent who. So we haven't bad, I mean, no, not at all. Academic freedom. This is the heritage our fathers want for us, and we're going to fight for it and maintain it.
You sound like a member of the UGCC.
Well, the heritage.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Eric Foku. I've enjoyed the conversation. But whatever it is, we'll call you back for you to give us feedback after your meeting. All right, so that's the president of Utah, KNUST chapter. Very interesting man, and you know the members there. But
I haven't finished.
No.
Now, the university is governed, yes, the university is governed by statutes and Act 80. Now, I'll leave all that so that we deal with the
substantive
pressing issue. 15-member council, you appoint 4. The rest are left to agencies that, according to the law itself.
Misconception.
No. You see.
Government nominates 4.
Yes.
Everybody else on that representation nominates.
Yes.
But who does the appointment?
Oh, please. You can't, government cannot say that, for instance, when the SRC nominates their president, government will say, I reject the nominee. On what grounds? You understand my point? So, government hasn't given anybody any reason. And yesterday, I heard my brother, very sadly, he's quoting the principle of Nemo Judas in Kosaswa.
Which brother?
Kojo says that the council members that were there before the crisis erupted should not be retained to come and sit over their own matter and determine it. Who says it is the council that will deal with the matter? Is there, look, if you know how the university is run, there are a lot of hierarchical structures. There's a disciplinary committee that's supposed to go into this matter. The students, it's only one instance that they cited for causing the crisis that they generated. They said what? One of their own was brutalized by a security employed by the school. Finish.
That's the trigger, but there'd been a number
a number of issues which government itself supported some of them. So I want to agree with the students that if it's about a matter of brutalizing one of the students, I agree. So there has to be an investigation. It is not the council that will descend to that level and do it. There's a disciplinary committee to be constituted by I think the registrar, the VC, and a few others are members of. If you read the statutes, it tells you exactly how things are done. So we should allow the council to handle this matter. I've been part of student leadership. We've been closed at UCC. When we came back, we were asked to sign a bond. Jerry Rollins didn't close down the university. There've been a lot of student disturbance. Even secondary schools go on riot. You don't sack headmasters. You don't close down boards of governors. You allow the school to function. Let government for once accept that they were wrong. And we do the needful and let the students go back. They've lost 2 weeks of academic work. Maybe second semester will compensate for it, but he knows the effect. You always have the effect somehow.
See, yes, I agree that this matter should ordinarily not be allowed to degenerate into a situation where it affects academic work on our university campuses. Because I was a victim of university closure for 9 months, and it wasn't a pleasant situation. And so, obviously, I wouldn't want 94.
94.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know, I wouldn't want that situation to be repeated. But my worry, really, from listening to the UTAC president from the KNUST chapter, clearly, if he is denying that at the stakeholder engagement at the ministry, all the parties agreed that no member of the dissolved council
was to be retained.
Absolutely. Then,
well, I've heard the UTAC president.
I'm saying
he said
that.
He said that if that was a prerequisite, then they wouldn't have.
I'm saying that the understanding that I have is that it was agreed at that meeting that no member of the dissolved council will return. Unless, of course, he is denying that that agreement was reached.
The student front
Then,
also
of
tells
course.
me that they did not. There was no such agreement. I want TV3
So clearly,
on Saturday.
I
you
heard
are
the
here
UTAG president say that.
indicating
It says if that was
that-
a prerequisite, they wouldn't have.
In fact, they are
continued
even
the
calling
meeting.
for minutes of that meeting
And
because they
I'm
insisted
saying,
that minutes
well,
be taken.
if that's the case, by all means, let's explore it, because the information that I have, and I do not have any cause to doubt the source and or authenticity of that information, was that an agreement was reached. And it will make sense for that kind of agreement to be reached.
No, it wouldn't.
So why not? We all have read the investing
So right now
statute.
we're where we are.
Yes, like I said,
It looks
I mean,
like we're in a stalemate.
engagements
Yes, indeed.
ought to continue. Stalemate, whatever it is, still can only be resolved
it's a
through
pure Middle
Georgia.
East crisis.
And I
You
don't
know,
think
you
it's a
see,
pure
let
Middle
me
East
make the
crisis.
point.
You know,
It's same government is able to ask a board of directors of Ghana Maritime Authority to investigate itself. When we are saying that they should ask another institution to conduct the investigations, and we are citing the doctrine of Nemo Judas in Causa Sua, they don't want to listen.
you see, I don't know
But
why
they want
you
to employ
always
your
want to
number
play-
Judas in Causa
want to
Sua.
play political mischief. with
It's not about
issues.
mischief.
The allegations that were
It's not
made
about mischief.
or that have been leveled it's against the Ghana Ghana Maritime Authorities chief executive.
No, the board. The man says I was authorized by the board. All the instances he has cited, he said I was authorized by the board.
Where did he cite those instances?
Why didn't you listen to his press
But
conference?
several allegations have been leveled.
Yes, didn't you listen to
Okay,
his press conference?
I listened to part of
Yes. Okay, then listen to all. The man says that all the expenditures I am supposed to have incurred arbitrarily were approved by the board.
10,000 Ghana cedis was approved by the board.
Why? He said
You
so.
have in your capacity as a senior counsel.
Why? He said, oh, why?
You know that
No.
every
Oh,
department,
you see, that is what the man is
including
saying. He
management,
said the end
the
of
board
party expenditure approved by the board.
But that's not 10,000 cedis.
Renovation of his but that
of
is
course,
eating-
nobody can incur an
Reno-
expense of 1 million without board
renovation.
approval.
Exactly. That is why I'm saying
Okay.
then don't ask the board to investigate
Oh,
itself.
please,
You don't want to listen
The
to
board
that.
is, you see, allegations have
He's
been
talking
made
about,
in the media.
He's talking
It
about
has
the
come to
principle
the
behind
minister.
it.
Yes, I'm absolutely.
Not talking about
Yes,
the
that's the
agenda.
principle.
Sorry,
Completely
Andre
missing the
Japan,
point.
it's
No,
okay.
you are
It's okay.
missing the
No,
point.
he's talking about
Plain mischief.
No,
That's all he's
no,
doing.
no,
Because
who is
you
plain
see,
mischief?
No.
He is.
No.
The
I am only
allegations
citing
that
the
have
same
been made
principle
in
to
the
you.
media, okay, was to the effect that the chief executive has done some expenses that are outrageous. And so the minister says, hey, board, investigate this matter that is being thrown out in the media.
Then he comes
If the
to a
board
pre- then
was
he
the
comes-
one that actually
then he
approved,
comes to a press
would they
conference.
exonerate the
Then he
chairman?
comes to a press conference and
man-
says,
yes.
that's, look, for all the things you're saying, my board approved.
Absolutely. But at what time did the
But then the minister, but then
at
the
what time
minister
did the minister issue that instruction
before,
that the board should approve?
but then
So
then
what's
Has
then the
a
minister
new
should-
letter. We are calling. I'll be calling on him to change the tenor of the letter and ask Yoko to go in and let the man step aside. Nothing
see,
has happened
You'll be asking for
the-
for the minister
who? You want the minister of transport to do what? Say it again.
to direct Yoko to conduct the investigations and not the board. And whilst the investigation is pending, the director general should step aside. He hasn't done that, and they have a timeline within which to work. So the board will now investigate itself. But you are using the same principle to ask UTAC that because your rep who was there was culpable, he cannot be brought back to deal with this matter. And they are citing the same principle.
can you
That's what I'm
imagine?
saying. That in one breath they cite one
can you
principle.
imagine?
When you cite one principle to them,
Can
they
you-
ignore
can
it.
you imagine?
But they go ahead and cite the same principle against someone else. That's the point I'm making.
Raising an allegation of double standard.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
He knows he's smiling.
Pure mischief.
No.
That's exactly
Roxanne
what
Nelson
you're doing.
Dafamakpo. Roxanne Nelson Dafamakpo is a member of parliament for South Dine. He's also a legal practitioner, has areas in the constituency to be Tongo, Parliament.
Peki, Avetile, Jogbati, Chame, Wudome, Kweve, Pali, Tongo, Germany, Ajewi.
Well, good morning to all of you residents watching us from those areas in the South Dine constituency. But also we have Member of Parliament for Sekondi, who would been with us for the last 1 hour, helping us with the discussions, Andrew Ejapamesa. You also want to rhyme some of the areas?
Oh, there are several communities, Anafu, European Town, Ekwasi, Samana, Semezudu, Zongo, Kwekuma,
Charlie,
Francis
one representative is number 1 point. All right, so we thank all of you this morning, and we've enjoyed the conversation. We hope that you can have some speaking points on this, and we'll try to upload and republicize some of the remarks that you've made through myjoyonline.com, as well as subsequently JoyNews on TV, which is a regular page on Facebook. But please, we have to take a break. There's a critical story we keep looking at. We started since the whole of last week, and yesterday reached a point where a 3-year-old apparently couldn't have an ambulance service extended to him when he had to be, based on recommendation of those who were managing the accident and trauma center at Winneba, to be transported to either 37 or most of the notable referral hospitals in Accra for treatment. But subsequently, of course, we've had the ambulance services extended to them. So Maswell Agbaba will be going to a hospital near you. We'll also speak to a number of our correspondents across. Yes.
Yes, you remarked about the OT region. The problem with the OT region is that we are not against the creation. We are just against the procedure. We think that everybody in the Volta region should have a say.
Read the Constitution.
Hold on. I have read the Constitution.
And what does it say?
Don't say so.
No,
please. So that
when
is what
we were doing the transporter to Golan plebiscite, wasn't every Ghanaian who voted?
Was it covered by the Constitution?
But it's the same principles.
Which principle?
Okay, please.
Constitution is very clear on what should be done.
And what does the Constitution say?
So what a lot of the people in the Volta region are saying is that let everybody in the Volta region be part of the decision making. That's all. That's all that they are saying. If indeed we agree that OT be created, which I am not opposed to, that is fine. But let everybody participate in the decision making.
So why not every Ghanaian vote then?
Thank you.
Let every Ghanaian
vote. When we come back, we have a great discussion on ambulances and the availability. All right, don't worry. These 2 members of parliament will have a helicopter at their beck and call when they are involved in any of those ones. But look, the ordinary citizens don't have ambulance. So we're taking a break. We'll be right back and discuss all the issues.